Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me all right? Oh, darn. For those who don't know me, I'm Pat Boss, and those that do know me, that's okay too. When John asked me to help with this program, I said gladly, and overwhelmingly gladly. I'd be happy to help represent our Engine 57. And what he didn't know is that I really like a microphone. And so I was just talking to Norm, a couple of the other guys earlier, and they said, "Are you going to do your normal stand-up, or are you going to keep it short and sweet?" I says, "Well, I'll introduce myself, and that'll take the first hour, and then we can go on from there and get on the program." So, but without that, we're going to take a little step back in time, October 26th, 2006. And folks, bear with us. This is going to be a fairly hard journey, but it's going to be a good one for all of us. Before I introduce John, I'd like to have the families that are representing their guys please stand and introduce themselves. All the family members that are here. Maria, go ahead and start it off, please.
Maria Lotzenheiser, representing Mark Lotzenheiser. Maria Lotzenheiser, representing Mark Lotzenheiser.
Jacob Lotzenheiser.
Phil Maclean, Jeff Maclean is my son.
Jody McKay, Jason McKay's sister.
Vivian Nahara, representing Daniel Nahara.
Is there any other family members here that I didn't see? Thank you so much for that. Appreciate it very much. Also, one other gentleman here, Greg Kohler, the owner of the property and the roundhouse. Greg, would you please stand? Pardon me?
I said, I'm the landowner where the tragedy happened,
Right, and your wife is? Yep. Welcome. Thank you so much. Greg has been an awesome supporter of this, and he's done a tremendous job down there at the site. The monument is just tremendous, overwhelming. If anybody has a chance, make sure the next time frame you go down there, and he welcomes you with open arms, and it's quite a memory lane. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce John Maclean, the author of the Esperanza book. He will take us through a PowerPoint presentation, and after the PowerPoint presentation, I'll have a panel of gentlemen come up here, and we can have some questions and answers, and we'll just take it from there. John, thank you.
Well, thank you all, and there are quite a lot of you here, for coming out on a blizzardy day. I think anybody who is not prepared for an unusual weather event probably shouldn't be reading a book about the Esperanza fire. A blizzard in Southern California in March is not what you expect, and an area ignition is not what you expect. And that's kind of the story of the Esperanza fire. I'd like to talk briefly before I start the PowerPoint presentation about what it was like to do the reporting and writing of this book. I get the byline, my name is on it, I don't share that with anybody. But it was a shared enterprise. It was a democratically constructed project. I did not do this alone. I could not have done it under normal reporting circumstances. It would have been impossible. What made it possible was the cooperation of the men and women of the United States Forest Service who were most directly involved in the fire, and of the families of the fallen, and of the men and women who pursued and caught Raymond Euler and prosecuted him and put him on death row. It was about this time of year, 6 years ago, when Richard Gearhart, who is with us today, one of the captains who was with Mark Lotzenheiser in Engine 57 on the day of the fire, came up to me at a fire presentation in Reno, Nevada, where I had a table and I was peddling books, which is one of the things I do. And he marched up to the table without introducing himself and he said, "Are you writing a book about the Esperanza fire?" I said, "Well, no, I'm not." I said, "It's a CAL FIRE fire, and CAL FIRE has a gag order out against me particularly, and news people in general. So I'm not going to do it." He said, "Well, it's not a CAL FIRE story." He said, "It's a Forest Service story, and we'll give it to you." And he brought Norm Walker over. Norm is with us today. He was your fire chief here in Idyllwild for a while. And Norm kind of ambled over. He didn't march the way Richard did. And started very quietly and very persistently telling me the story from his point of view and from the point of view of the people who were there. People were very upset about what had happened, naturally, but the upset went beyond the tragedy of the event, and it went into the aftermath and how it was being handled. My career has been made on botched investigations of fires. I don't know that you could say this one was botched. There were some very good reasons for the way things turned out in the investigation. The prosecution of Raymond Euler had not happened at that time. It's the first time, it wound up being the first time, that anyone was ever convicted of murder for setting a wildland fire, and everybody was scared to death that they were going to wreck the investigation. And of course they clammed up. But that led to some unfortunate consequences. So I had breakfast the next morning with Freddie Espinoza, who's also here, another one of the captains, and I met Anna Dinkel and Chris Fogel. Their cooperation has been unrelenting for 6 years. When I've asked for something, I've gotten it. I've talked to them hundreds of times. We have spent more hours than I can count going over things. I submitted the text to them. They corrected it. We discussed it. Came back with stuff. This went on year after year. I came out here year after year. And as a consequence, we have, and it's a we, an authentic text. I wouldn't claim more for it than that, but that's an awful lot. It passes muster with the people who were there. It passes muster with those who have had to live with the consequences. As the book says, a fatal fire does not die out when the embers are cold. It burns for generations, down into the sons and daughters, the grandchildren. These things don't go away. So the collective group effort has produced the book. I thank you all for the kind things you have said to me. I hope you extend those remarks, at least in thought, to all the rest of the people who gave so much to make this whatever it is. Okay. The Esperanza fire, as we all know, happened nearby. That's the book. This is the scene from the air to the north of the town of Cabazon, and it identifies the burnover site. And from this photograph, you can see very clearly the course of what is called the unnamed creek drainage. I'd like to see an effort made to have it renamed, the Engine 57 drainage, so that it doesn't sound so bland and forgotten. The fire started about over here in the foothills. It progressed along the foothills for most of 7 hours, and the fatal event occurred when the fire blew up in this part of the drainage. This is a total aerial view looking down at the same scene, and the red mark is the fire perimeter in the first 24 hours. The inset is a photograph of Vivian Nahara, who is here today, pointing to the spot where the ignition device was placed or tossed by Raymond Euler, about 12 feet off the roadway along brought on along Esperanza Avenue. As you can see, it's almost